Hello, welcome to Energy in Music, an introduction to energy, chakras, and how all that correlates to the harmonics of music. Now this can feel like a lot of information, but understand that no one needs to know all this information, but I think a lot of people could benefit from having it available. So try to keep an open mind and an open heart. First off, we need a foundation for this information. Space is not empty. It's completely full. It's just a continuous energy fluctuation, and everything is energy vibrating at a specific frequency, and every frequency has its own sound. Even our thoughts and emotions are vibrations that come off of our body. E equals mc squared shows us that mass is completely made of energy, and energy is another word for light. So we have four bodies, the physical being the most dense. We also have an emotional body, a mental body, and a spiritual body, and they exist in energetic layers outside of our body. But they're all completely intertwined, and anything that manifests in our physical body is connected to our other bodies. We also have an astral body, which can be looked at as an energetic projection of ourselves or our awareness, and we also have a higher self, a lower self, and our soul. Now, chakra is an energy point in the body, and we have thousands of them, but the system is usually interpreted as 7, 8, 12, or 13 as the main system. Each chakra spins clockwise, and it has a front and back, so the front and back both spin clockwise. We also have meridians, which are energy channels that run between the chakras and throughout our body, and our aura, which is the energy that exists outside of our body. Now, the 7 system sticks to the chakras within our body, and the 8 system includes the first chakra of our next set of chakras. So these are brief descriptions, but every chakra is connected to certain organs, a certain group of nerves, and it has its own color and sound to it. The root chakra is where our kundalini rests, and it's the healing energy that travels up both sides of our spine. And we see this symbolized in symbols like the caduce. It's an unimaginably powerful energy that we can learn to tap into. Our root is also responsible for our sense of security and basic survival. Next, we have our sacral chakra, which is responsible for our sexual and creative energy. Our solar plexus chakra is our eye center, and it's responsible for our self-confidence, our sense of self, and our self-worth. Our heart chakra is responsible for our love. But there are 2 types of love. There's universal love, which is love for everything, and personal love, which is love for any aspect of the reality. And that can be anything from a planet to a person. And then we have our throat chakra, which is responsible for our self-expression, how we're able to communicate with others. Our pineal chakra, or our third eye, is responsible for our intuition, our wisdom, and our real memory. Our crown chakra is responsible for our connection to the universe and our true selves. The Godhead chakra is our higher self, and it is you, and it sees and directs the life your conscious mind is perceiving. It's like an eagle flying over your life, and it does this to try and teach you what you came here to learn so that you can do what you came here to do. So red correlates with the root chakra, and red has a relatively long wavelength compared to purple, which means purple is a higher vibration, or more energy packed in the same amount of space. And I say that because the word density can be confusing, because a higher vibration is more dense with energy, but matter is heavy and more dense than light. Now, this shows an octave in music, and 1 octave contains all the sharps and flats in the chromatic scale. It has 8 white keys and 5 black keys. And an octave is really just 7 notes, but it contains the first note of the next octave. So if you just look at the white keys, it shows the 7 and 8 system, and if you include the black keys, it shows the 12 and 13 system. So, have a look here. So these are the descriptions of the 13 chakra system, and a half step right here, means that your consciousness cannot proceed until it understands its current perception to some degree. So the word dimensions can be confusing, so I'd like to explain how that correlates to the harmonics of music. But there are different ways to interpret the words dimensions. In this one, the physical reality cannot exist until volume in the third dimension. Or you look at everything as vibration and superimpose that with the harmonics of music, and this creates the interpretation of spheres within spheres. This major similarity between these two is that each dimension is completely contained within the next dimension, and this is why you must understand your current octave before you move up. So this shows our current octave of existence, our reality, as opposed to the octave that's within your body. This is the third dimension. Between every note exists 12 major overtones, and between every major overtone exists 12 minor overtones. So we have 144 dimensions within our current octave. And so going in and out, that's called holographic. It goes in and out and up and down forever. And every dimension is a different experience and a different perception of the one reality. Every dimension is completely overlapped, and the only difference is wavelength. And the average wavelength of the third dimension is 7.23 centimeters, which is the wavelength of Ohm. So, next, I'd like to introduce the star tetrahedron and the Mer-Ka-Ba. A star tetrahedron is two three-sided pyramids merging base to base and facing opposite directions. This creates 8 points, with all 8 points fitting perfectly inside a sphere. So each point will touch the inside of a sphere. The Mer-Ka-Ba is the energetic star tetrahedron that exists around us. And it's been dormant for a while, but it can be activated with the connection to your heart. In Egyptian, the word Mer-Ka-Ba means that spirit created a counter-rotating field of light to interpret the reality. So each of these 8 points, we see 6 on the outside, and there'd be 1 on the front here, and then one right here, but it's two-dimensional. So each of these 8 points grow from the original 8 cells of our physical body. And when we were 8 cells, our cells were actually relatively large compared to the average human cell. And at that point, when we were 8 cells, we fit perfectly inside the zona pellucida, which is the sphere of the mother's egg. So our hearts see the universe with unconditional love and unity, but our minds, when led by ego, see everything through polarity, good and bad, better or worse, black or white. And when you merge your ego with your heart, your ego aligns with your truth, and it's no longer driven by fear and separation. Now, looking at this Mer-Ka-Ba, we actually have three star tetrahedrons superimposed over each other. And the male star tetrahedron it spins left, or counterclockwise. And it's the electrical component of our Mer-Ka-Ba. The female star tetrahedron, so this entire shape spinning the opposite direction, spins clockwise or to our right, and it's our magnetic component. And our neutral star tetrahedron, which stays stationary, just as we see this one. If we look at each tetrahedron separately, so this tetrahedron and this tetrahedron separately, it's on an earth tetrahedron. So if we look at each one separately, the top is the male or sun tetrahedron, and it points forward in men's star tetrahedron. So in a male, this point will point forward. And in females, the earth tetrahedron points forward. So that means that this point right here would point forward in females, and the back face of this tetrahedron would be forward. If that makes sense. Now, this shows how energy flows through the points of our Mer-Ka-Ba and how that correlates to the harmonics of music. When the tetrahedrons are merged together, this void right here is the tiny space of our heart, which is the point of singularity, which is our connection to the unified field that connects all things. We also find the essence of our soul here. Being grounded's a really important part of developing yourself, and we have to be grounded in the sense of understanding our lower chakras before we proceed to our upper chakras. And we do this by connecting to our inner child and doing things that we enjoy. But something really important to remember is that being childish is being a dick, and being childlike is restoring your wonder. This life really is designed to be joyful, and no one's required to suffer. So forgiveness and gratitude towards yourself and others is extremely important for your development and those around you. Now the star tetrahedron, one important trait of it is that it fits perfectly inside a sphere. This is also a characteristic of the Platonic solids. The Platonic solids also have other characteristics. They have the same number of edges per side, the same length of edges across the whole shape, and all the angles inside the shape are the same degree. And all of this is based on the sphere, because they all fit perfectly inside a sphere. Each shape also correlates to one of the three primary energies and an element. So our left brain is our male mind, and it thinks logically, and it has to see things to believe them. It only looks at parts. It's the electrical component of our mind. But the proton in the atom is male, and it receives information from the electron, which is female energy. Our right brain is our female mind, and it feels intuitively instead of thinking logically. And it looks at the whole picture, it moves with curved lines, and it's the magnetic component to our mind. Now, the cells of our body divide with the binary sequence, which is a male sequence, and the Fibonacci sequence, which is female, and is created by adding the previous number of the sequence, the Fibonacci sequence creates the pattern in which nature grows, and it's the reason that we see so many spirals in nature. This pattern does this because it's chasing the perfect number, which is the golden mean. So if you take a number in the Fibonacci sequence and you divide it by a previous number, you get a ratio. And the higher you go in the pattern, the closer that ratio gets to the never-ending number of the golden mean. So now I'd like to show you. So we get all of the Platonic solids from Metatron's cube, and Metatron's cube comes from the fruit of life. The fruit of life is a feminine informational system that can be combined with male energy or straight lines in 13 different ways, each one providing us with different information about the reality. Metatron's cube is the first informational system that comes from the fruit of life and is created by drawing a straight line between the center of every circle. Now this actually creates two sets of Platonic solids. So the bigger one and then the littler one right there. This is described as a fractal condition, and it means that the shape can be built on top of itself and within itself. It's also an eternal truth that 7 circles can fit within any one circle. This means that any circle or sphere contain all the components for the foundation of the fabric of our reality, because there's 7 circles right here, and that gives us one set. Now, the fruit of life is created from the 3rd rotation of the flower of life. The flower of life, it's been found all over the world, and it always has the same name all throughout history. Now, this pattern is a 2-dimensional informational system created through a technique called shadowing. This is done by holding a light over a 3-dimensional object and looking at the shadow. if you hold a light over a 64-star tetrahedron grid, which is three-dimensional and made entirely of straight lines, then the shadow creates the feminine, two-dimensional structure of the flower of life. Now, everything I'm explaining right now is based off of this. So if you want to learn more information, I recommend a video done by Spirit Science called The Flower of Life. And if you want to read about it, Drunvalo Melchizedek has written 2 volumes about it called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. Highly recommend it. And before Albert Einstein died, he was working on combining the macro and micro physics. A gentleman named Nassim Haramein has spent a lot of time and energy understanding that the physics of our reality is based on the sphere and the 64-star tetrahedron grid. So I highly suggest watching his movie Black Hole and checking out his foundation, the Renaissance Science Foundation. So, like I said, this is the third road. The fruit of life came from the third rotation of the flower of life, and it started out with one circle, or one sphere. And so the flower of life actually tells us a story, and it tells the story of how spirit made its way out of the void. So spirit was in the void, and it couldn't do anything because there's nothing to move relative to. It's just there. So spirit projected its consciousness in 6 directions: up, down, left, right, and front to back. Now each of these lines is equal distance, and if you connect the end of each line to close the shape, it becomes an octahedron. So then spirit spun the shape on one of its axes, which created the sphere and the first combination of male and female energy. So after the first sphere was complete, spirit went to the surface of that sphere, anywhere on it, and created another sphere. And this is the first motion of Genesis. So the 2 spheres intersect each other's centers perfectly, and the space that intersects is called the Vesica Piscis. And this shape, this shape right here, it gives us the movement for the electromagnetic field, which is light, which is also why we have our own electromagnetic components. It also gives us vast amounts of mathematical information. And everywhere you see the Vesica Piscis, light is incorporated into the fabric of our reality, because light is the foundation for the fabric of our reality. And this is also why the Bible said God moved upon the face of the waters, and then it said, let there be light. The motion came before the light. So spirit continued to make spheres on the innermost points. So this sphere, and then it came up and made this sphere, and then it could either go here or here and draw another sphere. Each movement gives us more and more information about our reality, and each motion can also be called a day. And on the 4th motion, or 4th day, half of creation was completed. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which many of the Bibles say that today, that half of creation was completed on the 4th day. So the 6th motion completes the first rotation, and it gives us the 6-petaled flower shape, which is called the seed of life, which gives us the geometric shape of the torus, the only shape that can fold into itself. The seed of life is like looking at the top of a donut from above, but the center point is infinitely small. So the shape exists around everything, and the center point is the point of singularity, and it's the reason the electron disappears into the center of the atom as it delivers information back to the proton at the speed of light. And it's why every galaxy has a black hole in the center of it. So after this, spirit just continues doing what it's doing, so making spheres on the innermost points. So here, 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 and here. So what that gives us is the egg of life. Now, the egg of life. So if you just look at the circles from the second rotation and the center one, that's what the egg of life is, out of the flower of life. All characteristics about your physical body come from this shape, and all organic life must pass through this form. Now, if this was three-dimensional, the eighth sphere would be hidden behind the center sphere. And depending how you look at that shape, you could either see a cube or a star tetrahedron, which is why I said this is the 8 spheres that we originally were that grew out to be the 8 points of our energetic Mer-Ka-Ba around our body. So we grow energetically in all directions, not just like a string bean as we see in our physical reality. Now, if after spirit finishes the shape, it goes to the innermost points and does an entire rotation again, which gives us, what is this? Which gives us these spheres, or circles. This one, and these ones. So touching the center one and touching the edge. Excuse me. So if you did that, that would give you the original 7 circles, which would give us a smaller version of the platonic solids, but you remove the concentric circles that go around the entire shape and you draw a circle connected to each one of those. And that's what gives us the fruit of life. So that sums it up. This can seem like a lot of information, but understand that this is a very small amount of the information. There's a lot out there. And I understand that this isn't for everyone, but I think everyone deserves a chance to see it. So thank you for watching. I hope this helps who it's supposed to help.